and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. Now we're doing intervals between notes, and we've been doing that for a while. I'm going to continue with that because I've written songs for every interval. And I remember telling you that I would start with the third because that would sound better than the first or a half step. But since then I've changed my mind, and I'm going to show you all of it because, at least for an octave, I'll show you all of it. Because a half step isn't a whole, I mean, if you put it together it doesn't sound good, but you can still start music with it. Now here's my little keyboard, and I bring it only plays 2 notes, but one thing I like about it, one besides it's the fact that it's small and easy to handle, it's a Casio, and Casios are always perfect pitch, and I really do like it. It also has some interesting settings, but I'm going to stick with the piano setting because I think you'll be able to hear it the best. Now, if you do, here, I'm going to start off with a C. And if I do a half a step up, that's a half a step. If I do a full step up, but they don't sound together very good. Here's your half step. Doesn't that sound awful? Here's your full step. That doesn't sound much better. When you start getting a third, 1, 2, 3, then it starts being better. Now on this chart here, this is your D and your F, D and F. It would be an F sharp because I have put that F sharp in the key signature. So it sounds better than, and then from the D to the G, then that's a fourth, that's a fifth. Now that's a sixth, and it's really quite good for making it sounds good together. Now when you get to the seventh, it doesn't sound that good. Let's take it an octave. Not too good, but then you get the octave and it kind of resolves. Now let me try this on a recorder. I'll turn this off and you'll see what I'm doing with the recorder. Okay, the first, because I can't show you the comparison because I can only play 1 note at a time. There's your third. The differences you see with music is that you have to, if you play 1 note at a time, you can do scale work, and it is an arpeggio. If you wanted to do a chord, you would have to have it all at once. Now I want to show you something I didn't have a chance to show you last time. This would be an arpeggio in that you are playing all these notes separately. Actually, I'm starting on the D and going up to a D because it's just easier in the fingering. But you know, the thing is I'm playing 1 note at a time. If I were to play a chord, I'd play all those notes together. And the way they'd be written is one is directly on top of the other. And so therefore, you know, you play them all at the same time. Now, you can have a chord. You've got to have at least 3 notes. And, or you can have more than 3 notes, but it's got to be at least 3. I can only do 2 on this, unfortunately. That's only 2 notes, but I kind of balanced it around so you could hear them at the same time. I really need to get a keyboard that's about the size that can play at least 3 or 4 notes at a time. But if you play an arpeggio, you play it all at one, you hear about, I can't remember the name of this piece. Whoops. Huh. know that piece, and kids play it all the time. They go from one note to another note to another note, and for them it's kind of a fun song. I can't remember the name of it. So remember, with an arpeggio, you're playing all the notes separately, and with a chord, you're playing all the notes together. Okay, so let me take this off, and we'll go back to what I was doing with the intervals with the notes. And you can use a bass note and then add one note at a time and get yourself the intervals that way. What I want you to be able to do is to be able to understand and recognize the intervals as you hear them. Now, I'm going to show you a song, and I'm starting off with a half step. With this one, remember the half step, if you play them together, they don't sound good, but you can still do it if you're playing them separately with a song. Here's your F sharp, here's your treble clef, 4/4, here's your G, and there's your F sharp, and that's just a half step down, and that's one sharp. So every time you play that F, you play it sharp. So I wrote a little song on this one half step, which I'll play. These aren't, tremendous songs, but they're little songs that'll help you to remember what the intervals are. So we're doing one half step, and I'm starting off with a G and going to an F sharp. And that's the whole song. But what I did was I started with a half step, because a half step goes from the G to the F sharp. Now, if I'm going to show you that on a keyboard, just to show you what that is, and I'll put this up. And I can't find here it is. Here is we start with the G right here. This is probably easier to see, this particular G, because it's not the lowest one. And that F sharp would be right a half step below it. And on a keyboard, here's a G right here. That's one of the notes of the keyboard. And then you just go a half a step down. What do you get? You get that F sharp. Now, it's interesting in the keyboard, because when you get from a B to a C, that's always going to be one half step. Why? Because there's no black note in here. So that's always going to be a half step from that B to that C. And it's always going to be a half step from that E to the F for the same reason. There's no black note in between. So if you want to do a full step when you get to that E, you would have to go to an F sharp. E to an F sharp would be a full step. E to an F is just going to be a half step. If you can see it on a keyboard and sometimes see it on music, regular notes, then that's going to be easier for you to understand it. And normally, if you play two notes together and they're really too close, then they don't have a good sound when they're played together. But in terms of a song like I just played, you're not playing them together. You're playing them separately, and you're going from one key to a sharp. You're going from the G to the F sharp. That's a half a step. But playing it in a song, in the context of a song, then it can be okay. You can add any note, you can play any note that you want to. So I want to do this again. I'll take this down, and I'll play it again, and then I'll do a little dissecting. Remember, we are starting as an interval with one half step, and this half step is from G to F sharp. And every time I go from a G to an F sharp, which is several times in the music, quite a few times actually, that's always going to be a half step. But I'm playing it as a march, and it just works that way. So you don't have to worry about how it sounds. If it sounded awful, you wouldn't write it. You'd write something else instead. So I'll have you look at the music as I play this again. There are no repeat signs, no first and second endings. I mean, I made it simple just basically so you could see what the intervals are. That was the purpose for my writing it. So let me play this again. Now that sounds just like a college march that you play on a field, you know, if you were playing it on the field during a halftime parade or something like that. That's all based on one half step. So let's dissect it. Okay, treble clef. I always check this out because you might get some music that's not treble clef. So treble clef, F sharp, 4/4 times. So 4 beats to a measure, and a quarter note gets 1 beat. So you have all this information, and I've written half step G to F sharp at the top of it. So G, F sharp, G, N4N, and that also can act as an introduction to the song. I haven't written it out here like that, but it would because it's the first 3 notes. And then G, A, G, E, C, and then A, G, and then you have that tied. There's a little tie mark here. So it's 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you get the 4 beats to a measure, but you are tying this note here to this note here. So you're not tonguing it separately. You are tying it, which makes this note appear to be half as long as more long than what it was if you just played it as a single note. And then you go on with half note, with eighth notes. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. But these two together is one note, because if you didn't do that, it's going to sound like this. Now I'm going to play, I'm right here, and I'm going to play that a couple of times, repeat it, without that hold. Doesn't it sound better to hold it? So the purpose of that hold is to put those two notes together purposely, so this one becomes a little longer than it would be normally without the hold, about half as long, and then you play these notes as separate notes. And they're not that hard to play, and you get a nice little march out of it. And so you need to remember that just reading the time, that hold makes all the difference in the world. What if I forgot to put that F sharp? It would sound bad. I would be playing, but it sounds better, and that's because I've written it in the key of G and not in the key of C or something else. So that's that 1/2 step. Now I'm going to take this down and put something else up. This is also going to be 1/2 step, so you can get a chance. And it's also going to be in the key of G, and it's also going to be 1 sharp. It'll be a different song, but remember, it's a half step, just like the other one was, and it's starting off with a G and going to that F sharp, just like the other one did. 4/4 time with the F sharp treble clef. Now, this is this is a one beat, but it is a dotted eighth and 16th. A dotted eighth and 16th together is one beat. And I've explained, and we'll explain again how that happens. So this is what the song is. Now I want to play it again, and then I want to show you a couple of things that I did that are different than what most recorders do, some substitute fingerings that I put in just to show you. So if you can just kind of watch the music as I play it. So it's another march, but this is what I want to show you. When I get to B, C, C sharp, D, I play that C sharp the way that the saxophone does it. I don't play it like the recorder does it. It comes out exactly the same, but if you watch my hands for the fingerings, B, C, and that C sharp, and that D also, I do it like the flute. B, C, C sharp, D. Now, that's not the way that normally that the recorder plays it. This is the way that the recorder plays it. B, C, put that first finger down, lift the thumb, so the thumb is not on it, and then lift this finger. Now, I think it's easier to do it the way that the sax and the flutes do it in this particular piece. And I have a lot more control over the instrument by doing it that way. Why? Because when you get to the point where you've got, the thumb is not on the back, because you have to play a note that doesn't use it, and then you have to lift another finger. The only finger on the instrument is this one, is this middle finger, and whatever I have for support fingers on the right hand. The right hand helps to hold it. Your mouth has to hold it as well. So B, C, and this for the C sharp, and this for the D. B, C, C sharp, D. Now, isn't it easier to go C, let me see, B, C, and just lift that off? You've got all the right hand down, and then put those two down for the D, and it gives you, I think, a lot more security to play it that way. But you'd only be able to play it that way if the instrument can do it, and fortunately, most of the instruments can. But that's my way of doing it. You know, other people will say, no, 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 that's incorrect fingering. And it is, if you want to be real technical about it and say, well, I can't play it that way or this or that way, because that's not a traditional fingering. I'm not into traditional fingerings. Most of the time I use them, most of the time it's good to use them, but occasionally something else is better. You get the same thing. Now this is another thing. When I go C, if I play that E and I go to that D, isn't that easier than, isn't that a lot more secure to do it the way another instrument does it, if it comes out the same? Here's my D, and then for the E, sometimes I don't even have to put this finger down for this D and that E, and it comes out. The traditional way, though, for an E is to have these fingers down, and I think it's safer, really, to do that, because some instruments would have trouble with the alternate fingering. Instead of that's what you would do if you did it for the regular recorder. I use alternate fingerings, and I do it because I think it's easier. It depends upon the music. This is not a particularly easy march to play because it does have some complicating fingerings in it. But I mean, I can't say it's a really hard one. So let me play. I don't have a chance. This is no time to go into something else. So let me play that again and follow along with the music, and I'll review the fingerings with you one more time before we close. Now, there's one other place I want to review. This is a low D. This is a high D. The correct way to do it on a recorder, since it's a Baroque recorder, low D, high D, B flat. Because it's a Baroque, you need extra fingers, and then that B natural. Now, for a flute fingering, I think that's easier than it's just an easier way to do it, to do the alternate fingering. So when I write music, and all of this is my own music that I've written, I can show you, I can write it specifically to show you specific things, and that's one of the things I like to do. About using my own music, I can write to teach you something about a recorder or another instrument that I need to do it, and write for it specifically for that. So low D to high D is normal recorder, or for the flute, that would be about the same. That little part with the F sharp in it is about the same. So I don't have much time left, but it gets interesting when you get into the fingerings of instruments and how they work and why they work and what to use and what not to use. I've said before, for the saxophone, there are 5 ways to play a B flat. So how do you know which to play? It depends upon the notes that come before the B flat and the notes that come after the B flat. Which one is the best to use? It all depends upon the music that you're playing, and it's not the same for every song. So you get used to that. It's just a part of the music, part of the challenge of playing music. So I'm going to close it here, and please join me next time.